Hi class, I'm Kerry Crowley, and today I'm joined by 15-year Phoenix media veteran Chris Karpman. Chris, you've covered Arizona State athletics for the better part of the last decade, and I have some questions for you regarding ethical dilemmas. It's something we've talked a lot about in class, and we've seen different sports media figures play on both sides of the line. Some are really well versed in the ethical dilemmas of their jobs, and some are not. I'm interviewing you because you happen to be very well versed in your job, and you've obviously faced some very difficult decisions over the years. So just what are some of the broader issues you face ethically on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
There's a lot of landmines involved, especially when you cover recruiting, as I do really closely. You get to know recruits, their family members, coaches. Sometimes they want to ask you what you think about the program that you're covering. Two players are leaving, who are starters, what's the opportunity for playing time? I'm not supposed to tell you what the opportunity for playing time is, of course. So you have to understand what lines need to be drawn, how and why, and I think it takes a good background and a lot of experience in order to be able to navigate those things in a good fashion.
So you're not just covering college athletes and college programs. In this job, you're covering Arizona State football and basketball recruits, and sometimes those recruits will want to know a lot about a program. How do you minimize the harm? What do you say to them to tell them that, hey, it's not part of my job and I really can't divulge that information to you without them feeling kind of lesser for not knowing, maybe?
That's one of the challenges because what you're worried about as a reporter is, am I not going to establish the relationship with this subject matter that leads me to be able to break the news that I'm ultimately trying to do, or to convey what I'm trying to in the best light, because maybe they're telling somebody else because they felt like they're getting that from somebody else. So I just think you have to situationally understand the way that you engage with somebody. You gotta have good people skills at the end of the day. I think people skills ultimately lead you to a point where you can explain and articulate what your role is and should be without having to cross over into territory that you're really not supposed to.
Now, in covering high school recruits, there's so much breaking news, and you've been among the best in this market in breaking that news. My question for you, and I'm sure this comes up, is there ever a situation where a coach or a recruit tells you some information and wants you to hold back on reporting it, but then someone else reports it first, and you've kind of got scooped on that situation? What do you do in a situation like that?
So that happens all the time. I think what you're initially trying to do is you're trying to explain that you've seen these situations develop a lot of times in the past. And so if you say, okay, well, you telling me this is all the information that's available. These are the people that kind of know about this. And so you're trying to get them to go on the record with you about a subject matter, or at least speak with you on background in a way that you can report, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. When in instances where it does happen that information is reported that you know about, you want to circle back to those people. You want to explain to them, hey, this is what's been reported. This is probably how it happened. Feel free to take a look at it yourself. I'd like to be able to get you to comment on this, and then you kind of go from there, just based upon that relationship and the feedback that you get. Certainly it is your responsibility to cite who reported information first when you're going to be going that route, as opposed to just kind of independently reporting something. So I think there's a myriad of hurdles and challenges that you have to deal with associated with this. Of course, you're also dealing with college coaches and like how they deal with some of these things, and so there's no end of these, but I've probably dealt with just about everyone that you could possibly imagine at this point.
It sounds like the most important thing here is to act independently. You have to be your own person. You can't go by what a coach says or by what a recruit says. And so my last question for you is, how do you best act independently in this situation? Because there's so many different recruiting services. Everyone's got their opinion, and it's very easy to say, we were talking about a guy, Jalen Strong, today, who was a 3-star recruit. He came and played at Arizona State, and you had a different opinion on him than other people did coming out of the junior college ranks. How do you best act independently when you're evaluating recruits and talking to them?
Well, just like anything else, there's reporting, which is news, and then there is your perspective, which maybe you can talk about in a blog to some degree, or in an online forum or something of that nature, as long as you're doing a good job of drawing the lines between those two things. And I think that's very important. I think you have to make that clear at all times, what it is that you're doing. There's a clouding of things in that regard. I think just with anything else, the most important thing is to educate your audience, to engage with people in a way that makes it clear what your role is, what you're trying to accomplish, how that gets done, how that looks in terms of the finished product. I think whenever you're doing that, I think you're going to be fine. You can't promise or over deliver things to recruits. You can't tell them that you're going to do something for them as a quid pro quo or anything of that nature. It's really just explaining what your role is. But I think also that's something that you have to articulate is what you think is going to reflect best upon them in their process. I think there's nothing wrong with that either.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Chris Karpman, you can read all of his work at sundevilsource.com. For MCO 465, I'm Kerry Crowley. Thanks for joining us.